bookaholics, it's Isabel and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about all my favorite YA hard-hitting contemporaries. Hard-hitting contemporaries are probably some of my favorite books to read. I enjoy series, but I have a hard time finishing them, so I do prefer standalones, and the ones that I prefer are ones that make me extremely emotional. I know a lot of other people don't really care for emotional ones, they just want to have a good time, but I personally love getting all the emotion. I love these, and these are just some of my favorite hard-hitting contemporaries, so let's get right into it. The first hard-hitting contemporary I'm going to be talking about is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This one was a hard one to read. I read it as an audiobook because it's the best way to read this one, but it's very impactful, very emotional. It's written very well, and it's also acted very well in the audiobook. So I highly recommend this book. I'm not going to explain really what goes on in here. It is a mystery, and there is definitely some disturbing content in here, so definitely make sure you know the trigger warnings. There is sexual assault, and there's a lot of mentions of different things that could trigger, so definitely look into what could be triggering in this book, but it is definitely a great book to read because it really is very impactful. The next hard-hitting contemporary, which is probably one of my favorites out of all 7 of these, and it's The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book I read back in 2017, and it's still one of my top favorite books. It's written very well, it has a great message, but it also has spurts of joyfulness, there's spurts of sadness, and there's just spurts of anger. Like, there's just so much emotion that I felt when I was reading this book, and it's definitely even more important today with everything going on. This one follows a girl named Star. One of her friends is killed by a police officer right in front of her, and she is debating between if she should speak out or if not. It's just a very impactful book. It made me very emotional, and there's just a lot of hope in here. Really open your eyes to the problem, the systematic racism and everything that is wrong with the society at the moment, and just everything that we need to fix in how racism is impacting a lot of people's lives and how the world works because of racism. So it's definitely a very good one to read, and it's hard-hitting and so emotional, so I'd highly recommend this one. The next one on this list is How to Make Friends with the Dark by Kathleen Glasgow. This one was such a great book as well. This one's very, very emotional. It really hit me a lot because I have lost a parent, so I could relate very much to the main character. So the main character in this book is Tiger. Her mom just passed away, and she is put into foster care as she has no other family, and it just kind of follows her throughout this whole thing as she's grieving, going through all this alone, and just feels very isolated from everyone because no one understands what she's going through. And it's just a very, very impactful book. It's very emotional. This one's very, very hard-hitting, and definitely I'd highly recommend it. The next one I'm going to talk about is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. This one was also such an emotional book for me. I did read this one as an audiobook. So it follows a transgender girl, and she transfers to this new school after being harassed and bullied so much in her other school that she had to leave. And so she's pretty much starting over. She is wanting to just be who she actually is, which is Amanda. And that's who she has always been, and now she's finally able to just be that. And it just follows her as she's at this new school, meets new friends. There's definitely a lot of hard-hitting stuff in here, a lot from what happened in her past and what's going to happen throughout this book with other characters. So it's such a great book, definitely a great one to start if you haven't learned too much about transgender. There are a lot more books. Unfortunately, I haven't read as much as I should, but I'm definitely getting into more. I love this book. It was definitely eye-opening for me, and it just made me bawl so hard too. The next one I'm going to talk about in here is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This book, again, very emotional. This one I'm definitely going to say trigger warnings for rape and sexual assault. There's a lot going on in here because that is what this book is about. It's female empowerment over the patriarchy and how the patriarchy kind of encourages and like doesn't punish boys for hurting girls in ways like sexual assault and rape. It follows 3 girls. One of the girls just moves into town and she learns about this one girl who was bullied and pretty much like attacked away from this town after she was gang raped. And so it follows as these 3 girls create the Nowhere Girls and encourage other girls to stand up for this and not letting the guys and the school that's around them to encourage how the guys are acting towards all the girls in the school. And it's very empowering. It definitely has feels of Moxie by Jennifer Matthew. That one is also very, very good at how patriarchy works in our time and how that affects teenagers in school. Like, there's so much gender biased in school. Like, it honestly angers me of how the girls are punished for what they think the guys cannot control of themselves. Like, 7th graders, 8th graders in my school were not allowed to wear tank tops. Like, tank tops like this, I can't remember what it's called, but not allowed to wear that because guys can't control themselves apparently. Like, that just pisses me the fuck off. Definitely opens your eyes to that and the problem of the world today of how girls are the ones who are being punished for what guys are doing because apparently boys will be boys. These kinds of books really makes me angry, and that is what I'm looking for in hard-hitting contemporaries, and that's what I love in hard-hitting contemporaries because it really makes you think, it really makes you emotional, and that's just what makes a book great. The next one on this list is A Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. So this one also deals with rape and murder. This one follows 3 characters, Alex, Anna, and Jack. So Anna, Alex, and Jack are the 3 main characters it follows. Alex is the sister of a girl who was raped and murdered by this person who was let off because there wasn't enough evidence. So Alex takes it into her own hands. It just follows, I think, a year after that. And you just follow this fascinating character who has some kind of sociopathic kind of mind, and she is not afraid to show how she thinks about sexual assault and how guys treat girls. So it just follows her, Anna, who becomes Alex's one friend, and then Jack, who ends up starting to date Alex. So it just follows this whole thing. Like, it's definitely one that if you can go in as blind as possible. There's a lot that goes on in here that's very hard-hitting and might not be for everyone, but it's definitely such a great read in the sense that it really opened my eyes and it really made me emotional, and it's just written so well. Like, there's so many quotes in here that I absolutely just love, so I would highly recommend this one. The last book I'm going to talk about in this video is Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I would have to say this one's probably the least emotional out of all 7 of these, but it's definitely a very worthy contender. So this one follows 3 characters. They are all siblings, but they've never met each other before. They were all either adopted or in foster care. One of the main characters gets pregnant and decides to give her baby out for adoption, and during this time she finds out that she has 2 siblings and she wants to meet them, and she also wants to talk to her birth mother to find out how she felt about giving her away for adoption. It's a very hard-hitting one. There's definitely some flaws in here, but it's definitely still very, very hard-hitting. I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, probably one of the least emotional out of all 7 of these, but it's still definitely a worthy, hard-hitting contemporary to read, and I would still highly recommend it. So those are the 7 favorite hard-hitting contemporaries that I want to recommend to you guys. They are great, they're emotional. Hard-hitting YA contemporaries are probably some of my favorite reads. I still love YA contemporaries, but the hard-hitting ones are my absolute favorites because they definitely dive into topics that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about. I really enjoy reading about those tough topics because it really makes you think. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your favorite hard-hitting contemporaries. Let me know your thoughts on the books I mentioned, and if you have some recommendations to me. Hit me up down below with some recommendations if you want. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the notification button so you know when I post another video, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye!